I forgot that you take time. In the bottom right, we have the red Terran, Clem.
And of course, in the upper left, in the blue for Berlin International Gaming, it's ShoWTimE. Yeah, I just got to let the stinger process so we actually get in game. Anyway, it's fine. Zombie Grub Oceanborn, game 1. It's a decently sized map with a third base that's kind of hard to hold on to. What's Clem going to do?
Clem's probably going to go for some early micro shenanigans. Actually, maybe similar but not identical to what HeroMarine did in this map, because HeroMarine went for the multiple Reapers, 2 Hellions, factory expand, I believe, so that's not what Clem's doing, but he could still do something like a Medevac and 2 Cyclones and whatever amount of Marines he can pop out as well, because that's what he's been doing a lot of. Although, caveat, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have not been casting every single Clem vs Protoss game that has existed in the past 4 weeks, because he plays a lot of them. And I have not been casting the Open Cup weeklies. But anyway, he does seem to thrive on that. You know, the earlier that he can get control over the game, the better. So even though he can also play some of these 3cc builds that were really working well for HeroMarine, but not well enough, that's not necessarily what we expect from him. That's probably the most defining difference between the two. We say micro and macro. Well, looking at the build orders, I think Clem would more often emphasize some early game attack, not necessarily off a factory expand, but still, then go for a fast third CC in this matchup. Unless he was trying to do some type of mind game or what have you against likes of Max Packs, because he has thrown in a couple. But otherwise, like HeroMarine 3cc, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Clem 3cc in this matchup, not as much. Obviously, he's very well known for it in TVZ, but even that's changed. A lot more 2-axis from Clem recently.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You think about Clem as this player, he will go in TVZ. You're right, it's changed a little bit, but in general, you roughly know what he's going to do. Every single map, it's going to be Reaper Hellion, most likely. I guess they're the 2 racks now. In this matchup, though, he's got a much wider bag of tricks. He's got 1.5 base timing, Cyclone builds, Reaper builds, Hellion builds, proxying a factory on the low ground to make sure you get 2 Hellions into the mineral line a little bit early. The bag of tricks here, we talk about Protoss having the bag of tricks, this book of Protoss filth, I guess, I think is Biggest called it. But in this matchup, you're right. I think it is Clem the one that's going to do the interesting stuff. He's the one that's going to try to mess with ShoWTimE's brain a little bit, cause some havoc. But for now, I mean, I guess there are multiple Hellions on the map. So Hellion drop at the start.
Hellion drop, not any particularly cheesy one, I guess. Starport's on the way. Actually, could be in a Wood of Mines after, and it is going to be in a Wood of Mines. So yeah, if it was a proxy Starport, I'd definitely say Hellion drop totally and completely. But this one, going to 2 Hellions, 2 Wood of Mines. This is where the difference often shines between Clem and a lot of other Terrans, which is that even though it looks like ShoWTimE is perfectly well set up against it, again, he like deflected HeroMarine's early aggression, easy peasy lemon squeezy. He might falter a little bit against Clem, and that little bit is all it really takes for Clem to kind of expand on as the game continues. So this is a little bit, but it's still a little more lost mining time, 1 more probe dead than what HeroMarine got, again, in a different build, but kind of same idea, the early aggression. And then maybe Clem can do a little bit more on the Wood of Mine drop follow-up and a little bit more on his first attack. And ShoWTimE is not in his comfiest place, although it is still totally fine. He did, after all, handle that aggression, and he is going to go into a 3rd Nexus.
I mean, that just makes sense, right? 2 gateways, Robo on the way, you get Blink defensively. This is milquetoast Protoss. This is the standard how Protoss has been playing pretty much since Legacy of the Void, or maybe shortly after that, but Clemmy's got this Wood of Mine, 3 of them getting ready to drop in the natural. ShoWTimE's in location roughly, but Blink isn't done. And Clem doesn't have boost, though, not for the moment, so he's not going to get a lot of damage done. And Stalker's on the high ground here as well. 1 Wood of Mine, no, all 3 of them, they're going to get out here, but the medevac goes down. Stalker's fall. ShoWTimE handling this really nicely, actually. He's losing some army units. He's going to lose, I think, maybe a probe, but realistically here, this is not bad for ShoWTimE.
Yeah, Clem kind of initially got a little lucky. I feel like he did dodge away from that 1 Stalker that was scouting specifically for that. I think ShoWTimE was very well aware of the follow-up probably was. But then in the natural, since it was already defended, Clem was like, well, I can't boost, so I'm not going to try and go over it. Let's go into the main. There's Stalkers there too. So then it got really unlucky and really unfortunate very quickly. He got surrounded, basically. Now, that said, he still did demise some mining time, and he did kill 2 Stalkers, which makes those Wood of Mines pretty valuable, but the whole, 3 Unit Mines and a Medivac going down, that was the consequence. That was the sacrifice. Stalkers on the counterattack, not going to find too much potential. A little delay in the refinery, but even another Stalker going down isn't really worth it. And then they are also out of playstyle for some Raven harassment, which, I'm not saying it's going to do amazing things, but it is going to get something, and that something might just be lost mining time, might be 2 probes. 2 probes, probably.
There we go.
Nailed it.
She is a genius. It worked out.
Yeah. And again, these are just the little pinpricks that make me confident in Clem's ability in this matchup. This is the start that I'm not surprised to see from Clem, but that makes me really believe in his overall prowess in the matchup. And ShoWTimE hasn't got to show his strengths yet. And this is interesting because he's not actually really showing his strength as we would usually know it, which is pure macro. He is going 3 base, blink, forgeless, charge, mass gateway. So he's going for a mass gateway plan, almost like a hero or Zest would. I definitely call back to him more often. And I don't know if Clem's going to be expecting this. Clem could be thinking ShoWTimE, Colossus, so cool. And he's going to run face first into a bunch of charge lots. The auto turrets will be not super effective, if they even are going to be a part of it. The tanks are going to be less effective as well. And Clem just simply might just be gobsmacked when he moves out on the map.
Yeah, I mean, anti-armor missile as well. That's probably the best possible spell, but even then, it's not a ton. Now, Clem does have his 3rd base on the way. This is that... Oh, man. Nice scouting there from ShoWTimE, but Clem, immediate reaction. So it should get out anyways. I guess the one thing we're talking about here, Clem does have that 3rd base on the way. That's what happens when you go for this build. So if he identifies what's happening, he doesn't have to move out. He doesn't have to go and just get annihilated by a bunch of zealots. But for now, he actually is moving out. He wants to make this happen.
Oh, the pseudo surround. ShoWTimE expects it. He realizes what the setup was. Unfortunately, is not able to recall that quickly. Still loses, I think that was 4 additional stalkers, maybe 5. Not the best start for him. And I do want to say that Clem is figuring things out. That Raven harassment at the 3rd saw no gases. And now he scans the natural and sees no 4th gas. So you got to figure there's a big emphasis on charge lots. You just got to figure that. So he is prepared, which really a lot of the plan here for ShoWTimE, I think, was literally just shock and awe campaign. Suddenly charge lots surrounding your entire army. And he's not even actually really there. And 9 zealots is not really it. That is not that much of a fighting force. Even if Clem was surprised.
Yeah, not really. He lost all those stuff. I mean, the force fields are nice, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing to back it up here. Zealots on the backside now that you can't get on top of the tanks. And ShoWTimE losing those stalkers like that in the middle of the map, 5 of them going down, all of a sudden, no army supply, has to warp in more stalkers instead of the zealots. And Clem makes that idea of mass gateway, defend against the 6-minute stim timing, get a lot of units. Look pointless, look impossible. Look, why would you even try?
Yeah, if you watch the end, you'd wonder what, really bad thing happened to ShoWTimE to put him in such a desperate position, where it didn't really feel like there was anything particularly terrible. Yeah. Some lost mining time that he preferred not to have, a couple of probes that died to Hellions that should have not done any damage, I guess, theoretically. But it's I feel very smart right now. It's exactly what I kind of said, which is all these little pinpricks, all these kind of little things that A, can add up to the next thing, that add up to the next thing, that add up to the next thing, but then B, that really show that Clem is feeling it. He's in the driving seat, he's playing his game, he's having his fun, and then if he's doing that, we know he can demolish anyone in any matchup, but I think particularly TVP. So if there's going to be any hype in the series, because I know some people are like, you guys, maybe you should be a little more excited about this. It's going to be when ShoWTimE gets his first really good engagement. And I still believe that's very possible, but he really needs to get that first really good engagement to get his own momentum going, to really feel his type of game and really be confident in his PVT, as I'm sure he also recognizes he's coming in as a bit of an underdog.
And I think that's important to point out as well here. When we talk about how players play, right? It not only is your macro good, is your micro good, it's how well can your mind get into a game. And it's a lot different for ShoWTimE to go into a Hero Marine PvT where he beat him in the group stage. He has looked good against Hero Marine. He's looked good in the matchup. Okay, fine. I can come in with a lot of confidence. Coming into a matchup against Clem, though, Zombie Grub, talking yourself up as the favorite in that series, that's just a little bit harder. But Equilibrium is ShoWTimE's map for game 2. And in the upper right, in the red, up a game, just as Zombie Grub said, paper cuts off of paper cuts, exsanguinating his opponent. It's Clem.
And in the top left, we do have the blue Protoss for BIG. It's ShoWTimE.
There's a map, Zombie Grub. If there's a map that you take as ShoWTimE, it's gotta be Equilibrium, right? It's just, the map is big. It's the third base is hard to take for the Terran if that's what you want to go for. We're seeing a lot of Protoss players take the gold base with the rich gas. It feels like, again, if there's a map that ShoWTimE's going to take in this series to get himself up, to get maybe a little bit more confidence, it's got to be this one, right?
No, it is his map choice, so it's the safest bet, I guess, for like, what would you prefer? But I still feel like there's some difficult problems on Equilibrium. Of course, the main base being so wide open is the first problem, so a lot of Phoenix Open is trying to deter that, but then the third base also has some problems as well that, you know, basically the size of the map can accommodate for. So, okay, you don't hit the main base, but the Phoenix are there, you can't easily go over to the natural or the third, but... And we also have the potential of the gold base, which, you know, I feel like this happens in every single map. As we see Clem go for a 1x expand, he will eventually figure out what's going on. But what I feel like happens in every single map pool that has a gold base like this, which is the gold base that's out in the map that's super vulnerable, but it's gold, you know, that's the trade-off, is that initially no one scouts for it, so it works. Then people scout for it, it doesn't work. Then it's like a trap, and the person who attacks into it is actually the one that gets killed. And then it just stops working totally and completely and is actually a trap for the person who does it. They're like, I'll get away with it. I'll surprise the guy. It'll be different. Something, you know, weird's gonna happen. And then he just dies regardless. So basically what I'm saying is Equilibrium has already gone past all of the points in which I would believe in a gold base being taken. And I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer and say that I don't believe in this. But God, I love that ShoWTimE's trying to change things up.
I mean, you say that, Zombie Grub, but let me introduce you to the story of Firefly. Because Firefly killed Oliveira with this build. Well, no, I think he might have. I can't remember.
Wait,
Natural
this is deja vu. Because this, yeah, I feel like last time we cast together, you brought this exact point up and the Protoss lost.
Yeah, but that was a PvP, okay? It doesn't count. That was max spec ShoWTimE.
Oh, okay, okay.
It was the one map that didn't go 20 minutes into mass Phoenix carrier with nothing happening. It was the one aggressive map.
Oh boy, that's serious. Yeah, that's why I forgot about it. But no, I mean, yeah, but it's also like the Chinese scene is so different too. Like, I don't know. I would love for this to work out. So far, it has gone unscouted because, well, Clem is only just not scouting, so that would make sense. But 2 Reapers into the main, and then eventually into the natural, we'll figure out that something's missing.
I mean, unless, of course, the Reapers all die in the main base because they're okay, actually, they're going to get some damage done. Probes are falling. I mean, realistically, if Clem loses both of his Reapers, and because, hey, they're Oracles and Adepts, and the Reapers will go down, you lose 5 probes, Zombie Grub, and that's not great. But Clem still doesn't know that there's a gold base.
True. These Marines also slightly missed time to catch the Adept off guard. They almost were perfectly timed. I would say that ShoWTimE is getting something here, but then he also did just lose 5 probes to 2 Reapers, so, you know, give and take, I suppose.
It's gonna be interesting to see. So right now, we don't really see a lot of advantage out of the gold base just yet. It's just Oracle and a second Oracle, but there is actually not a lot of defense in the main base. And, I mean, there is a Widow Mine. Not exactly. Oh, it's in the net. Okay, yeah. So ShoWTimE could have gotten a lot of damage done there, but he was just really respectful of the Widow Mine potential.
Yeah, a couple of Adepts in the natural, too. Clem is being pulled apart a little bit more than you might expect. The Mule gets target fire down. The Adepts will die. And the third one is going to be able to shade out, but still. 2 SCVs, 2 Adepts, and a Mule, I guess. But it's really all about that lack of gold base knowledge, which, I mean, you definitely want to know it's on, even though you don't necessarily know if they're going to use it aggressively or just literally macro, you obviously still want to know about it. And Clem simply does not. And guessing that it exists, that's a little too far, even for a map that's played out now, like Equilibrium is. Like, I don't think anyone just naturally guesses their opponent went to the gold base.
Oh, that's fancy, though, on the Cyclones. Actually, it doesn't get either Adept because missed target fire, but still. Hot pick up there on the Cyclone to try to knock these Oracles out, but 3 workers have gone down. Yeah, it's not 5 in the first 3 minutes. It's not quite to that level, but again, ShoWTimE, he had the gold base. He was okay with the economic value that you lose from losing 5 probes matters a little bit less than you have when you have the gold and getting damage done on the other side. Very nice for ShoWTimE. We still got to be careful here, Zombie Grub. The Twilight's not done. This is just base gateway units, and this army coming out of Clem, it's not going to have stim. but it's still pretty scary.
He doesn't have stim, combat shields, Marauder slow, nothing actually. Very aggressively placed, but it's going to reward ShoWTimE. He takes down the Cyclone, the Medivac, the Widowmine, and now when it comes to just dealing with Marines, Stalkers do outrange them. A little bit of missed micro, however, loses 2 Stalkers. Close losing a 3rd, and the tank coming up here actually would have helped out tremendously. Clem does use the wise thing and back away, because he did also successfully set up Liberator in the main base. So he still got something from that push out, but not what he was hoping for, which I would say was to at least keep the Medivac alive and do some of that fancy footwork we know he can do.
These are the most successful PvT Oh, they're dead now. Are they? Oh, they're gonna get out actually, and they're gonna get a fresh mule. These are the most successful PvT Oracle Zombie Europe. I think it's fair to say that I've seen in about 3 years. You don't get damage done with Oracles in PvT. It just doesn't happen. The extra shot that it takes means they don't find value. So this is 9 SCVs, an Orc, or a Mule going down, a fresh Mule going down, massive scouts. We talked about how ShoWTimE needed to take a good fight, about how he had to get his legs under him a little bit. Are his legs under him? Is he less wobbly need?
I think I know what match I was thinking of. It wasn't the PvP, it was Trigger versus Special. Yeah, and that actually was won by the Protoss. So yeah. I like, but in my defense, I feel like it wasn't supposed to win. But no, that is actually a very similar plan, because we also have, again, mass gateway after the Phoenix this time anyway, but we still have a lot of gateway units. Something that I think Clem has picked up on, he's emphasized the armory. So the Widowmines are going to be cloaked here as long as Revelation doesn't hit them. And that's, well, apparently happening because the Oracle control has been so damn good. A little bit of a splash on top of the Marines as well. Tank is lifted out of the equation, but Marine firepower still pretty good. Maybe not good enough. Pick up, unload, go after the Phoenix, hope that you can retreat with something, but it's not going to be a lot here for Clem.
No, it's really not, and everything that you got left here is so very injured between stims and damage that they took. Shout out to Clem. He saved from the force fields, and actually the force fields worked really against ShoWTimE in that fight because they're all behind him now, and the Zealots couldn't quite make the engage happen. But ShoWTimE is getting ready. He's got a gateway on the way on the bottom side. I think he saw the drop possibility. But he's just getting ready to move out on the map right now. He's got those Oracles. He's got the Phoenix play. He's got a pretty scary army. The good thing for Clem here is he's not trying to take the 3rd base. It's still outside the natural. Widowmine drop. No, Prova's the pull is good in time. I guess Zealots are going to die. But honestly, I mean, ZG, you want so much more than that, especially as now ShoWTimE knocking on your front doors, Clem.
Well, the Widowmines are cloaked, and another one goes into the main base. This one a lot more effective. 6 probes do go down, and again, continued denial of mining or the denial of the Revelation on the front lines, which is also actually very, very important. In fact, I would say this is the most important thing. The Oracles are forced to be pulled back, so he can't choose his time to go for the aggression. That means that Clem can build up more army, which he really needs to do, particularly on the Medivacs. He had 2 more finally pop and immediately use them into Widowmine drops, which is a give and take when you might also be handling a mass charge that army trying to bear down upon you. But with those successful drops, the successful time buying, he's able to pull back his Medivacs. He has all the extra reinforcements, including some extra Widowmines, which he also absolutely needs. And he is set up to try and defend. ShoWTimE still dealing with some harassment, finally deciding to go for it.
I mean, he's gonna go right in, looking for the drag on the Widowmines. No, lifts them instead, and now the Zealots into the natural here. Clem microing desperately, but the Zealots, they're getting on top of things, and the Revelation means Widowmines aren't getting their shots. But now Clem back into the corner here, Zombie Grub. The Zealots, they can't get the engage that they want. ShoWTimE, he's gonna be forced to back up. He gets 5 SCVs, maybe a couple more on the backside, but no, Clem puts them in the command center. Gets away a little bit. Force fields on the backside though. Clem, have you overextended a little bit here? It doesn't feel like it. There's not a lot on the ground from ShoWTimE. Well, is there?
There's the Phoenix that got all anti-air. The Marine now trickling in from the Prepare to try and hold on here. The Marauders do end up tackling most of the ground army, and the 3rd CC will end up being lifted, but that was hella close. I mean, extremely close. ShoWTimE's +2 armor kicked in, but then Clem's +1 armor also kicked in. So the upgrades, I think, were made very even throughout a lot of that. Didn't catch exact timings. Clem was able to back away into more of a corner, which made the Zealots a little more ineffective. He was able to just barely get his Medivacs into play to help out with the healing. If those 2 Medivacs had died and their Widowmine dropped, that could have been a huge difference maker. I mean, that was down to the wire. But now, oh my god, Clem's gonna tap out. I actually don't think he should have.
No way. He got 9 probes on the backside. Economy was equal. I think upgrades were okay. Supplies are equal here. I understand why he dropped out. I mean, it didn't feel good, but knowing what we knew right there, I'm not going to say he was in the lead, but he wasn't dead.
The thing that I think was easy to forget was that the gold base adrenaline rush was running out. He was actually running out of minerals at the gold base. His for a base economy was actually going to be, well, 2 base, because the main was also mining out at that point, right? Like, it's actually not terrible for a third CC Terran player to go up against, especially when the third CC is brand spanking new. But I guess because he basically was looking at a scenario in which he wasn't sure of the probe count, he wasn't sure of the gold base mineral, capacity, he wasn't sure of how many probes he killed. He looked at his own army and was like, oh, it's not that big. I can't go for a counterattack. My orbital's not done on my third base either. I don't have any advanced technology like ghosts. Like, I'm not going to be able to win out the longer game, which he might have been right about. Of course, he thinks he is. He tapped out. But if Clem had the full survey of the game, I think Clem is the type of player that doesn't usually tap out there.
Yeah, I guess I agree. I guess in fairness, ShoWTimE did have, his main base is mining up, but he does have that 4th base on the way. Clem really struggles to take his 3rd, but I mean, even then, he had lost a lot of SCVs. Worst comes to worst, you can float your main base over to the 4th. The economy wasn't bad, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be Hecate though for game number 3. It's gonna be Clem's map pick again. But honestly, Zamagrub, this is another big map. This is a map base that kind of has a gold. It's got half a gold. It's got, although we talk about gold bases being baits for shit for the Protoss player, for the Terran player, taking this gold bait or this half base gold early is the biggest bait that I can possibly think of. And if ShoWTimE takes this, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I don't think it's gonna matter all that much.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way he takes it. It's just not worth it with it only being half, I think. The closest I've seen to it being kind of a cheesy strat is like Estrella went for it as his 3rd or something. Maybe even his 4th, actually. I don't even count that as cheese. Just like the PVZ or last week, I want to say, or maybe it wasn't even a regional OEM. But regardless, it probably doesn't play a part too much. ShoWTimE, though, he really is okay. So he gets game 2. And obviously, like, I should be thrilled that he won a game. I'm not like totally and entirely convinced by it, but he did win, and he is different strategy choices are throwing Clem off for sure. That's how I won game 2. I do wonder if he's gonna stick to charge lots, so to mass gateway, I should say, more specifically mass gateway, because I do think that's something that eventually gets a little tired and gets figured out, basically. Like, I don't think you can do it every single game like you could maybe years ago, again, when like Zest was really powerful. So I'm looking forward to figuring that out with all of you as we move on to Hecate. In the bottom left of the blue Protoss, it is ShoWTimE.
And of course, in the upper right, in the red, falling down a little bit in game 2, maybe not quite able to figure out what was happening. For Team Liquid, it's Clem.
And again, it's not that I think he was supposed to win last game or that there was a 50-50 chance for him necessarily. It's just that it was a game in which it was, let's say, a 30% win chance, or even something really low like 20%. If you're like, no, Clem was 100% dead. It is still a game that which I would say a lot of Clem's games would still play out. Like, he would still try and go for the drops and the micro and maybe even an SCV pool as the last hurrah. So that's why it was weird. But with that in mind, as the NG Bay block is trying to be canceled here, I will want to say that, like, I don't think that was like a tilt GG, which Clem has occasionally fallen victim to, but not super often, not at all. I think it was just like he really did survey his own side of the map, unaware of the total scenario, and he tapped out because it probably was the right choice. It's that if he had map hacks, he'd be like, maybe I'll LCV pool or something. No, he didn't. So he's willing to accept that loss, obviously, and it was his opponent's map choice. Now trying to get a little bit into his opponent's head, though, a little bit of revenge, perhaps, earlier on with the NG Bay block into Factory Expand off of the 1 gas.
And Zamagrub, imagine, we talk about eBay blocking. Imagine if ShoWTimE took the gold base. I don't know. I got nothing there. You talk about revenge, right? You know, I'm going to eBay block you in your natural. Well, ShoWTimE has shown a history, I guess, a proclivity for putting bases on the map. There we go. That matters.
Yeah, I mean, he has, yeah.
Not this map, though. It's not going to happen.
You know, actually, if ShoWTimE really is playing super differently and is maybe imbuing a little bit of the hero spirit into him, I actually would have been a little more afraid if I was Clem and I was thinking about that, which, of him doing like a one-base build, actually, you know, like a little proxy starport or some shenanigans, right? But very, very unlikely from a ShoWTimE, and overall unlikely in the matchup. What is becoming a lot more likely is definitely Cyclone openers, which super cool. ShoWTimE should be wary of some type of early aggression because he has no scouting otherwise. So he has no idea what it could possibly be. But he gets a safety shield battery, and that's really going to help out. The Cyclones coming across the map now going to be further rallied, reinforced. I mean, it's only 2 units, though, to actually protect that shield battery. I wonder if the Cyclones could lock onto it.
I mean, there's a second gateway just about done right now. There is the Stalker on the map, but I think what Clem's looking for here is for ShoWTimE to open up Stargate again. He did that in the first 2 games in the series. He won 1, didn't win 1. And this build that Clem has gone for is so good against the Stargate play because, I mean, it's Marines and Cyclones. You open Oracles, it's dead. Phoenix don't shoot down well enough. But because this is double gateway, this is Blink on the way, this is Robo, ShoWTimE should be able to get the Stalker count out required to make sure that he should be okay. Although, I mean, we talked about the shield battery. It's already out of juice. So, and I don't think it's a range of overcharge either. So this is actually going to be a bit more problematic than we might expect. And the gateway, at the very least, seems destined to die.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, like, you know, the Stargate comes in with overcharge actually is available, so that's really important. Oh, Bailey doesn't say that soccer, though. 4 Cyclones still alive. The overcharge almost gone as well, and more units still need to be made. It's kind of a little scary, but ShoWTimE is going to hold. But what I was going to say, the conundrum is that, you know, a lot of times the engineering bay block into the factory is going to lead into maybe some Hellion pressure, and then if you don't have a wall or a Stargate to help out, then those Hellions get a lot of damage. But then you're right, if it was Oracles, then the Cyclone's really more effective, but then you would need a wall if it's not, or if you only go for gateways, you want to make sure that the Hellions aren't made and don't just go right into your natural. You need that wall at the front, but if the wall's at the front, the Cyclones can get the lock-ons. It's just annoying. It's basically what I'm trying to explain. On the Protoss' side, it's very annoying, especially if the engineering bay block is more effective. If it gets 99%, then it's, obviously the third base has to come down as a natural, and that's when Hellions are particularly good. But it seems that ShoWTimE has handled all these annoyances well enough. The overcharge actually being available is very helpful. Now he has Blink, so the Cyclones really don't have a lot of map control anymore. And in fact, it is Clem who has to be a little scared of a little counter pressure as his tank sieged up. Does scout the third base, though, with this Marine.
Yeah, and I mean, the Blink Stalker count here is significant. There are, 6 of them, but there's no Warp Prism. You know, there's no follow-on. It's only 2 gateways with the third base. So we're going to see ShoWTimE put some pressure on, maybe snipe a Cyclone. That sounds like a nice little thing to take it. There we go. Revenge for early game. But he's not going to get much more than that. And really, he's buying his time to get that third base up, to get the Robo Bay up, charge, +1. Whether he decides to go for armor or attack, I mean, whatever he wants. Because he knows that Clem committed a lot of gas to this. He built 4 Cyclones. He committed early to that pressure. And theoretically, that means that Clem's army, that Clem's pressure is going to be a little bit slower or not as powerful. But Clem's on the map right now, and he's hitting a weird timing here. Medivacs aren't ready, Zombie Grub. The starport just finished. He's trying to hit before ShoWTimE is going to expect him to, and for now, we don't have a Colossus on the field. It's 6 Stalkers, 2 Sentries, and a Dream.
Thing is, too, is that he doesn't have to necessarily punch it. He can just set up the tanks defensively and then wait for those medivacs to actually come into play. Or he could punch it. Force fields are going to have to come down to buy some time, but there's where the siege and then the wait happens anyway. And even with 1 Colossus actually out, that's still not a lot of DPS, especially as the Marauder count continues to grow. I mean, this is still very scary. The Cyclone opener now being more effective as far as getting into the mid-game, because the Cyclones have that cheaper cost. Means that an attack like this is still very potent. Medivacs are still not here as the sim is popped. Overcharge now out of range, and unfortunately the Colossus will go down. Oh no, and that is it. Clem will win game number 3.
That was such a great timing from Clem. He hit before Medivacs. He hit before ShoWTimE expected him. He hit like 10 seconds before charge was done. 15 seconds before 5 additional gateways were complete. ShoWTimE, literally, you give him 10 seconds, he holds that, slaps it aside, we're fine. But Clem identifies what's happening. He identifies that ShoWTimE, given that his ShoWTimE is going to be greedy, is going to really greed out for that, and then you slap him. 3 tanks should annihilate a Colossus, and ShoWTimE got him in range, and that means we go to game 4, Zombie Grub. Quick as that.
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't have been that easy.
No, it was an anti-timing, right? I mean, yes, the upgrades were done, but Terrans don't move out like that before their medevacs are ready. Like,
I do feel like it's becoming more common, especially in that scenario on that map, actually. Now that it's always successful, we do see times when the lack of medevacs is, in fact, the reason why the Terran is forced back or just straight up loses. But I still say that, like, even though that's a new kind of play from the Terran player that can be effective, I didn't think it was going to look that easy. I wonder if ShoWTimE could have bought more time. Maybe his stalker usage was a little low. Maybe he should have force fielded even further, like on the low ground of the ramp, as it was a high ground. That little bit of extra range given to the tanks actually led to the Colossus's demise, in fact. So, I mean, there's that, and the Colossus is alive. You don't have overcharge, but maybe then you buy enough time for those warp pins to finally finish up with the gateways. I don't know. It feels like a game that wasn't supposed to be that easy, you know, a little bit more of a back and forth, and then Clem maybe still wins it, sure. But then just like right then and there, boom, that's it. Clem is now up in a game. He's like, oh, okay. That's how that goes.
I guess, you know, I'm not guessing he gives ShoWTimE game 2, because again, I think ShoWTimE was in a solid spot, but you know, he leaves probably before he should have, and then ShoWTimE says, Merry Christmas, here, have a game right back. It works out. Game 4, though, we have to see if that is a little different. In the bottom right, though, in the red, he's up a game, not down a game for Team Liquid, Clem.
In the top left of Site Delta, he is the blue Protoss ShoWTimE.
No, Zombie Grub, I guess what happened there, we talked about ShoWTimE as the wall. Clem's so fast, he just found the natural frequency. He vibrated ShoWTimE right on down. Knocked the wall down, just basic application of physics. Easy.
Can you do that with bricks?
Yes, actually.
Concrete wall?
Famously, there's a bridge in Washington State called the Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell the chat.
Yeah, that went, and they like, on its opening day, the wind hit it made it vibrate in the right way, and the entire thing came crashing down.
That's true.
Now then they learned that bridges, you got to pay attention to things like that. And it's actually the fun thing, the more fun one actually, is you talk about a lot of major bridges when large columns of infantry, like when a military goes marching across a bridge, there's a specific bridge marching cadence so they don't all march in beat, because then you can actually break the bridge, which has also happened. So they force them to march not in beat, in this own like marching cadence, so the bridge stays alive.
Cool.
That's what I got.
That was a nice story.
Yeah, we're bridging the early game, Zombie Grub, getting into a point where we can talk about build.
And we're not allowed to talk about Quidditch anymore. So
I got Cats and chat bullied me so hard for that one. I swear it's a real sport. I'm okay.
I mean, I don't know what real is like. Real is a really interesting term because, of course, a lot of people say that esports isn't real. And it's what is a sport? Well, if sport is physical activity, then does like golf really count? Especially if you're using like a cart.
What? How many people are we gonna make mad today? What is your what is your hot take?
I can do so many hot takes. It makes people so many people mad. Like I have so many of them. But maybe we'll save them for later because we actually have kind of an interesting opener, I guess. ShoWTimE going for I think with little. I actually identify with Estrella, which is a Sentry second. I don't know why. Maybe he is the one that does it more often. Maybe I just selection bias. I have no idea. But the Sentry second, faster scouts, presumably will save you against almost any early game attack, I guess. Didn't in Estrella versus Scarlet, which is a different matchup, but still. Is I feel like a sign of that more defensive play, which we haven't really gotten to see from ShoWTimE yet. I mean, last game was maybe leading up to it, but then it kind of gets stopped before it started.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk that Sentry openers might become a very common thing in PvT with not this patch that we got what, a month ago at this point, but the one leading up to Katowice, because they build faster out of gateways, not out of warp gates, but out of gateways, and it does give you that vision. It does give you that defensive power. So he sees the Reaper, he sees the Hellion running across. He's gonna get a really nice scout of the main base and see that, yeah, Clem, he's on a 1-1-1. He's not going 3 racks. He's not going 2-1-1. He's got a good idea of what Clem wants to go for. But what he really wants to see, I think he's going to get it. Yeah, he's going to see the Cyclone. He'd love to see the medevac, but that's not going to be ready in time. But Clem seems like he's getting ready for aggression once again. Medevac's on the way, adding in those Widow Mines. But it feels like it's going to be kind of hard to break this high ground Protoss positions up.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, ShoWTimE adding on a shield battery, I feel like shows a lot of respect to this. I think what he's more afraid of is the diversion tactics and only having so many units. Yeah, so it's not a question of defending the natural ramp against everything that Clem has to throw at him. It's the question of splitting your army, which, yeah, is definitely a difficult task for Protoss in the early game. But 3 gateways really set you up well to defend basically anything in the early game. 2 base, shield battery, 3 gateways. There really should not be a way for Clem to do damage. But Clem is Clem, so let's pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, he should be fine. There's stalkers in the main base as well, so if ShoWTimE takes damage in this setup, he has done something. Oh, he's gonna get the probe, though. Delays the 3rd base just slightly. But Zombie Grub, you talked about this. It's all about the paper cuts. And we have our first one.
A little bit. Very small. Hardly noticeable until you put hand sanitizer on it.
That's real. And then it just hurts so much, and then you're just...
Yeah. And again, ShoWTimE is changing things up. I gotta say, even though I wasn't really a believer in ShoWTimE, not because I don't think he's a great player, it just is so difficult versus Clem. In fact, he's my favorite Protoss, especially in Europe. He's overall. But it just... I didn't expect him to change things up so much, which even if he does lose, even my initial prediction is correct, I'm still really impressed that he's so diverse coming into this, because, well, ShoWTimE has definitely worked on his diversity and his aggression and his change of pace as far as his career has gone. He still is a macro player, but he's clearly showing that he can be different, especially when it comes to facing different types of Terran. So versus Hero Marine, it was very much the old German classic, but now versus Clem, he's trying to do some kind of almost equally aggressive, but at different stages, I suppose. He's done a max packs with the early Zealot, early proxy gateway, a 4-gate, but he is still doing some aggressive stuff. Mass gateway is aggressive. It's dedicated. And in this case, it's not mass gateway low gas. It is instead gateway storm. So that's a change up. And now it's noticed, of course, High Templars already feedback the Raven, but it still might be something that Clem's kind of have to take a step back and be like, oh, that's how you're doing it. Okay, let me readjust here.
Yeah, and there's still that question, right? Whether this is, and obviously scouting these 3 Head Templar would tell Clem everything he needs to know, but it's also the question, is this Charge Lot Archon for some weird bust and handling the Terran aggression, which happens occasionally, or is this for Storm? Is this commitment to the heavy gas count? He does see the gas. Actually, you know what? He sees the 2 gas natural, so that should tell him most of what he needs to know, and this is something that Hero's been doing quite a bit, playing around with this Storm, welcoming the Terran aggression into his waiting arms and dropping just electrical energy on their faces. We've seen some Storm drops. Doesn't seem like that's what ShoWTimE's getting ready for. And now Clem, he's opting into the fight against Charge Lot, against Storm. Yeah, he's up army supply, but Zombie Grub, you drop a couple Storms on his face, that army supply changes very quickly.
Yeah, 30 army supply can be bridged, but you do need those Storms to connect and the Zealots to actually connect as well, which the Guardian Shield change helps out with a little bit, I guess. Here we go, and unfortunately, the Warp Prism goes down! The Storm is pretty good, and there's not a whole lot of medevacs to actually heal up this now injured Terran army, but it's still got that +1 now in effect as well. The Zealots will get depleted. High Templar Focus Fire Sentry goes down. Stalker's also looking to fall. Even a snipe on the Observer, ensuring the Widow Mine's survival. Overall, not what ShoWTimE was hoping for.
Yeah, Clem timed that out so well. He had a Widow Mine in the 3rd, Widow Mine in the main base, attacking. By the way, sorry, still Widow Mine in the main base. And he's gonna get, oh no! That had range on 1 probe and it got, I think, 6 or something. He had that so timed out well. With the, you talked about this, I think in game 1, Clem's big focus on the armory, on getting that much earlier than you might otherwise do, and it's reaping massive dividends, dropping the main base as well. There's gonna have to be recall here. Widow Mines are just gonna evaporate everything. And there's another one preventing warp-in. So I guess, you know, the army kind of doesn't get out, it does go down. But look how many, this is, that's the 3rd shot on that Widow Mine, Zombie Grub.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. 16 probes have gone down in total, which, you know, if it was, I mean, we're only 8.5 minutes. I'm not going to say that's not that bad. It is terrible. It's very unfortunate. It's all happened very recently in like a spike as well, which just means that ShoWTimE's currently still investing under 50 minerals a pop, trying to replace those units. The High Templars still have a chance to get some amazing storms because he has built so many High Templars. I mean, good lord. But the overall game is going to go to Clem. He's going to eventually get to Ghost. He's got 3 CC working on his second upgrade as well. ShoWTimE's split on a single one. The Storm's being split against because there's not the backup to the Storm to actually get the kills. Is also a problem that forces ShoWTimE to merge his High Templars. I mean, the good news is he does have gas, apparently. He's able to replace these bad boys, but they're time buying so far.
I love that we just saw Clem bathing in the storms because he knew that there was no damage. It's like, it's better for me to sit here just barely out of stalker range, and I'm going to heal it up. It's going to be fine than really worry about it all that much, so he can focus, I guess, macroing or do something else. ShoWTimE, it seems like he's maybe posturing to take a 4th base. That seems really dicey, but Stalkers are going to blink on top. There are so many Widow Mines. Only one of them gets a shot off, so that's something, at the very least, for ShoWTimE. If we are on a little bit of Protoss Hopium here, but the Marauders, they're not going to take a lot of damage. They do kite away. ShoWTimE, he's on 61 probes, which is not all that great, but he is on 3 bases. He's adding in 2 Colossus at a time. And honestly, Zombie Grub, if he gets up to 2 to 4 Colossus before, and when Clem is focusing on this Charge Lot Archon idea, and you can get a bunch of Vikings on the other side, maybe the Colossus timing, maybe that's enough.
I feel like I am thinking back to like a Trigger special series where, you know, Trigger did almost make this miraculous comeback. In fact, did, and they did it, and then whatever. But Clem, he's, I think, so much better at actually cutting the head off, you know? Oh, even the drop of the Ghost, you look fancy. The Colossus are the bigger threat, but with so many Marauders that now have 1-1, all it's going to take is a minor concave for Clem to jump on top of any opportunity given to him. ShoWTimE has to play a near perfect game from here on out to slowly build up his force and slowly build up his Nexus. He can't really do any trading. As soon as he trades out some of these army units, it's going to be so difficult for him to replace it. I mean, he just has to basically have Clem never really, truly engage into him, which the Storms can sometimes do, but when the EMPs are out, the Storms, they, you know, quickly disappear.
I mean, nice feedbacks, but now there's not a lot of Storms in this army. It's a great position for ShoWTimE on the high ground. Storm doesn't really land, though. That one absolutely does, and ShoWTimE for the moment holding the high ground really nicely. Widow Mines, though. Say bye-bye to the Archons. They're not going to be able to get that much done. Now, Zombie Grub, you say you think of Special Trigger. MaxPax had a game like this against Clem earlier today where he was down. He was so down. But he hit the Colossus timing. He flooded across the map. He caught units in the air. Granted, that was a Phoenix play, but even still. And he did break Clem down. But the longer this goes, the more we get into, what's our Viking count right now? It's at 4, going up to 5. The longer this goes, the more likely it is that Clem is going to have the Viking count that he needs. And now, ShoWTimE, his army actually seems decently split to hold on to this.
Yeah, about as well as you possibly can. Also, a lot of weak medevacs that are very targetable, or even just a Storm catching the tail end of them. I will say, though, that I feel like that MaxPax game, it was a little bit closer in terms of the whole, like, economy versus army situation, you know, which is that the army of the Protoss was still just good enough, even if its maybe overall situation was quite terrible. That's not quite the scenario here, even without the Vikings. The fact, you know, ShoWTimE how it did across the entire map, down 40 army supply against a potential Marauder concave, 25 Marauders, which also backed up by 8 medevacs, 3 of which are basically dead, but they're still here. Yeah, that changed the dynamic a whole hell of a lot. And a Raven still being alive too. Finally, that thing died. Thank goodness. I was annoyed by that.
Very nice. And now ShoWTimE on that right side again, or Clem on that right side again. He wants to set up shop here. But again, there are 4 Colossus. Storm on the high ground doesn't do a ton, but it does soften some of these units up. And I guess you get a Storm on the Vikings, maybe, Zombie Grub. That might be what you need, but for now, Clem just wedges his way on up here. It is +2 attack. This army does a lot of damage, and the feedbacks, there might only be 1 Ghost with energy in this army. Big drop into the main base, though, but it's in vision. ShoWTimE should know about this recall into the main base right now. Clem, though, on the right side, wants to reset, wants to find his way back through the middle once again. And this army from ShoWTimE is stuck in the main, ZG.
Oh my god, the medevacs are so low health. I mean, it takes one of these Storms fit thick. Come on, come on. The Storm unfortunately does not hit the Medivacs. It does hit the heart of the army, weakening a lot of it, but unfortunately, as you said, the army's not here to really capitalize as much as maybe it could. Another Storm to truly push the Terran force back. Medivacs still alive. Vikings, not so much. Good control there. That was a dance. That was a dance on two different sides. The Bio versus High Templar versus EMP versus High Templar versus Vikings versus the Colossus. And it's a dance that ShoWTimE did very well while also having to guard a potential main base drop. He's now able to get to a 5th base far farther in this game than I expected. I am starting to huff that hopium, man. I actually think that ShoWTimE has gotten to a somewhat stable position. 3 upgrades for ShoWTimE now, +3, but against Clem's 2-2 with 3-3 about halfway done. Clem certainly will still have a very powerful army that he could also transition into Liberators with. So he can pressure, he can threaten engagements, and then as he does that, he can then go into Liberators. And unless ShoWTimE can actually get some force out on the map, he will be weak to that transition. So that's his current problem.
Zombiegrev, look at our army composition right now. ShoWTimE identified that Colossus are good, didn't stop at 4. 6 Colossus now done. He's adding a Warp Prism. It feels like he wants to go right now, identifying that Viking count is, it's 9 Vikings. That's really good against the standard Protoss. Not when you have 6 Colossus, and the Storm's actually not going to land all that well on the Vikings, as 1 Colossus gets a little low. But if ShoWTimE can get his army together here with this +3, with all the Colossus, all those laser giraffes firing, maybe that is the play. But for now, the Colossus, they're taking a lot of damage here. And the Vikings, they still survive. Even though the Colossus count is so high, the Vikings are annihilating. Meanwhile, left side, though, Clem tried to find value there. The Colossus, they're defending. Doesn't matter. ShoWTimE, we huffed the copium for a second, CG, but it was just copium.